Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Stephanie, and I appreciate y'all stopping by today. I don't know about y'all, but I am so ready for fall. It has been so hot here in Arkansas lately that I'm just over it already. So today I'll be showing y'all how I made these 4 easy reversible decor pieces for fall and Halloween. I love decor pieces that can transition from one season or holiday to another with just a simple flip, and it saves me time, money, and storage space. I hope y'all enjoy this video, and if you do, please give it a big thumbs up and be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Let's go ahead and jump into the first DIY. For this first project, I used one piece of wood 12.5 inches long that is 2.5 inches wide and 3/4 inch thick for the base. 3 wood pieces that are 3.5 inches wide and 3¼ inch thick, cut to 7, 9, and 11 inches long that I picked up at Lowe's for the pumpkins, and one 3/8 inch dowel rod from Walmart for the stems. I started by measuring out the length I wanted the pumpkin stems to be using the dowel rod and cut them to size. I did end up cutting each piece of the dowel rod a little bit longer than the previous one so that I would have 3 different size stems for my pumpkins. Once I had the stems cut, I used Rust-Oleum stain in the color Kona to stain the entire base and all 3 stems. I used Waverly chalk paint in the color Pumpkin and painted the 11-inch piece of wood with one light coat so that you could still see the wood grain. Next, I used apple barrel paint in the color Harvest Orange and painted the 9-inch piece of wood with one light coat. Finally, I used one light coat of apple barrel paint in the color Orange Sherbet and painted the 7-inch piece of wood. Once all the paint was dry, I used Waverly chalk paint in the color Truffle and a Dollar Tree paintbrush to distress all 4 sides of each of the 3 orange wood pieces. I did do heavier distressing on one side of the wood for the jack-o'-lanterns. This is how all 3 wood pieces turned out. Next, using my Cricut machine, I cut out 3 classic jack-o'-lantern faces in black vinyl and put one face on each of the boards. Now, if you don't have a vinyl cutting machine, you could use a black Sharpie to freehand the faces or print them out and trace them onto the boards using carbon paper or chalk and then paint them. Here is how all 3 jack-o'-lanterns turned out. I think they're absolutely adorable. For the base, I cut out the phrases, "Happy Fall, Y'all," and "Stay Spooky" in white vinyl. To do this, I just went into my design space and chose a font that I thought fit the seasons. I put the phrase, "Happy Fall, Y'all," on one side of the base. Again, you don't have to use vinyl. You could use stickers or even freehand the words. Then I flipped the base around and put the words "Stay Spooky" on the other side. Starting with the Stay Spooky side, I arranged the jack-o'-lanterns in the order that I wanted them to be placed on the base and used a pencil to mark where the first and the last jack-o'-lantern needed to be placed. Then, using a combination of wood glue and wood glue hot glue sticks, I attached the jack-o'-lanterns to the base. First, I applied a generous amount of wood glue to the bottom of the smallest pumpkin and then added a little bit of the wood glue hot glue and placed it on the base using the pencil mark as a guide. Next, I applied the wood glue to the side of the small pumpkin and then applied both glues to the bottom of the largest pumpkin and placed it down on the base and up against the smallest pumpkin. I used a slightly damp paper towel to remove any of the wood glue that squished out from around the pumpkins. Finally, I placed wood glue on the sides and bottom of the last pumpkin and placed it on the base and up against the largest pumpkin. Again, I cleaned up any of the excess glue with a damp paper towel. To attach the stems to the pumpkins, I just used the wood glue hot glue. If you don't have these glue sticks, you could use regular hot glue, E6000, or regular wood glue to attach them. I put the shortest stem on the shortest pumpkin, the longest stem on the tallest pumpkin, and then the medium stem on the medium-sized pumpkin. To finish up this project, I took some raffia and, only using 3 of the thicker pieces, tied a simple shoestring bow around the pumpkin stem. Once I had the bow tied and was happy with the size and shape of the bow, I cut off the excess raffia, leaving a little bit for the tail. I wanted to be able to twist the bow around to the jack-o'-lantern side when I display it for Halloween, so I did not glue it down or tie it too tight. I then repeated this process to add raffia bows to the other 2 pumpkin stems, and that was it. I am so in love with how these pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns turned out. They match my rustic decor perfectly, and they were so easy to make. This may be my favorite out of all of today's DIYs. Moving right along to DIY number 2. For this project, I used 3 pieces of scrap wood that I had on hand. I cut all 3 of them to 6 inches long, and they are roughly 5.5 inches wide and 3/4 of an inch thick. I did not worry about sanding them down or removing the rough spots and wormholes, since I wanted these to be rustic and for one side to be a little spooky. I used the Kona stain and stained one of the wood pieces. Next, I used Waverly chalk paint in the color ivory and gave one of the other wood pieces 2 good coats. I used Waverly chalk paint in the color pumpkin and gave the last wood piece 2 coats. When the pieces were completely dry, I took some sandpaper and distressed all 4 edges of each wood piece. Here is how the pieces looked once they were distressed. Just like in the last project, I used a combination of wood glue and wood glue hot glue sticks to attach the blocks together. I applied a generous amount of wood glue and a little bit of the wood glue hot glue to the bottom of the white block and placed it on top of the stained block. When I was stacking the wood pieces, I made sure all the roughest sides were facing the same way, since I wanted the Halloween book stack to be a little more spooky. I then used the combination of wood glues to attach the orange block to the white block. This orange block will be the top book in the book stack. Using my Cricut, I cut out the words pumpkin spice in white vinyl and placed it on the right side of the orange block on the smoothest side of the book stack. Next, I cut out the words falling leaves in black vinyl and placed it on the white block. Then I cut out the words apple cider in white vinyl and placed it on the last block. This is how the fall side of the book stack looks once the words are on the blocks. For the Halloween side of the book stack, I cut out the words boo in white vinyl and put it on the orange block. Then I cut out the words witch's brew in black vinyl and put it on the white block. Finally, I cut out the words Hocus Pocus in white vinyl and put it on the last block. Here is how both sides of the book stack looks with the words on both sides. Next, I took one of these wooden trucks from Crafter Square at Dollar Tree and removed the little ball off the bed of the truck. I used a combination of a utility knife, heat tool, and scraper to finally get the little ball to pop off the back. Once I had the ball removed, I took 3 of the tumbling tower blocks from Dollar Tree and put 2 of them on either side of the truck bed and the 3rd across the back to act as a tailgate. I took a pencil and marked the 3rd block where I needed to cut it to make it fit, and then I used my mini tabletop saw to cut it to size. After I had the block cut, I took the Kona stain and stained all 3 of the tumbling tower blocks. I used Waverly chalk paint in the color hazelnut and painted the entire body of the truck with 2 coats. Next, using apple barrel paint in the color burnt umber and a small paintbrush, I went around the edges of the body of the truck and drew a small window on each side. I used Waverly chalk paint in the color ink to paint the tires of the truck. I did go ahead and leave the very center of the tires unpainted. Then I used a silver paint pen from Dollar Tree to fill in the windows and the center of the tires. To build the bed of the truck, I used wood glue hot glue sticks and glued one end of each of the tumbling tower blocks to the smaller block. I then used more wood glue hot glue to attach the bed of the truck to the truck. Next, I took some jute twine and wrapped it around the book stack opposite the words and tied it in a shoestring bow on the front of the books. I tied the jute tight enough that it wouldn't sag, but not so tight that I would not be able to slide it off to switch it around to the Halloween side. I cut out the word pumpkins in white vinyl and placed it on the bed of one side of the truck. For the other side of the truck, I cut out the word ghost in white vinyl. I used one of the wooden ghost DIY pins and one of the jack-o'-lantern wooden DIY pins from Dollar Tree and removed the little clothespins from the back of both wood cutouts. And then I painted the jack-o'-lantern with a few coats of Waverly pumpkin chalk paint to cover up the design. To give the pumpkin a little bit of texture, I added a little extra paint and held the heat tool close to it so that it would bubble up a little bit. I used Waverly chalk paint in the color ivory to paint the ghost, and it did take a few coats as well to cover up the design. To finish up this project, I put some hot glue, wood glue, on the bottom of each of the truck tires and attached it to the top of the book stack, making sure the pumpkin side of the truck was showing on the fall side of the book stack. I put the little pumpkin in the back of the truck, and that's it for this easy reversible project. Here I'm showing how easy it is to flip the jute bow around to the Halloween side and then just replace the pumpkin in the back of the truck with the little ghost, and it's ready for spooky season. I think this little book stack turned out so cute. I've made several mini book stacks for my tiered trays, but never one big enough for a shelf or display. I'm really excited to add this to my decor this year. I want to take a few seconds here to mention that today's video is part of the Flipping for Fall Challenge hosted by Chantel from Crafty Hints, Brenda from Rustic and Lace DIY, and Amanda from 6 Kids and a Glue Gun. If y'all haven't checked out these ladies' channels, I highly recommend doing so. Y'all won't be disappointed. I will leave a link to their channels in the description box below, along with a link to the playlist, so be sure to check it out for even more reversible fall decor inspiration. I chose to flip fall with Halloween, but I'm sure there are some fall to Christmas DIYs and many more on the playlist, so go check it out. Now that I've said all that, let's go ahead and jump into DIY number 3. For this quick and easy project, I used 3 pieces of scrap wood that I had in my stash, cut at 7 inches, 9 inches, and 11 inches long. First, I painted the 7-inch piece with a couple coats of Waverly chalk paint in the color pumpkin. Then I painted the 9-inch piece with a couple coats of Waverly chalk paint in the color ivory. And finally, I painted the 11-inch piece with a couple coats of Waverly chalk paint in the color ink. Once the paint was completely dry, I took some sandpaper and heavily sanded the edges of all 3 blocks to give them an old worn look. For the fall side of this sign, I cut out the words fall in white vinyl and placed them on the front of the orange block. Next, I cut out the word leaves in black vinyl and placed them on the front of the white block. Then I cut out the words pumpkin in orange vinyl and placed it on the front of the black block. Again, if you don't have a vinyl machine, you could freehand these words, use stickers or stencils. For the Halloween side of the sign, I cut out the words you're the in white vinyl and placed them on the back of the orange block. Next, I cut out the words hocus 2 in black vinyl and placed them on the back of the white block. Then I cut out the words my pocus in orange vinyl and placed them on the back of the black block. Again, I used the rougher side of these blocks for the Halloween side of the sign. To finish off this quick little project, I made sure all the words were facing the right way. Then I applied a generous amount of wood glue to the bottom of the white block and placed it on top of the black block, getting it as close to center as possible. Next, I applied the wood glue to the bottom of the orange block and placed it on top of the white block, again making sure it was centered. I think this sign turned out so cute, and I know it's really simple, but I think in this particular project, less is more. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Last but not least, DIY number 4. For this project, I used this large wall sign that I picked up for $5 in the plus section of my local Dollar Tree. I started by gently popping the sign out of the frame, which was super easy to do. I just had to be careful and watch out for the staples on the back side. Once I had the sign out of the frame, I used a flathead screwdriver and some pliers to remove all the staples. After I removed all the staples, I flipped the sign back over and sanded the entire front side with a sanding block to remove the glue on the edges and prep the surface for paint. Next, I gave the front of the sign a few coats of Waverly chalk paint in the color ink to cover up the word blessed. Then I flipped the sign over and gave the back a couple coats of Waverly chalk paint in the color pumpkin. While the sign was drying, I flipped the frame over and removed the two hangers using a small Phillips head screwdriver. Once the hangers were removed, I flipped the frame over and painted the front, inside, and sides with a thin layer of Waverly chalk paint in the color ivory so that some of the black color was still showing through the paint. Next, I took this pumpkin garland from Walmart and removed the large raw wood pumpkin from the twine and stained the front and sides with the Kona stain from Rust-Oleum. Then I took two of the wooden ghost cutouts from Dollar Tree and removed them from the bases using a utility knife to score along the bottom of the ghost and carefully bending the base back to pop them loose. Once I had the ghost off the base, I used Waverly chalk paint in the color white and dry brushed over the front of the ghost, leaving some of the raw wood showing. I painted the ghost so that they would be facing in opposite directions. Then, to put the sign together, I laid the frame back over the top of the orange side of the sign so that I could place the vinyl words and letters. I started by placing the word hello that I cut out on my Cricut in white vinyl, kind of crooked in the upper left corner of the sign. Next, I laid out the letter F, followed by the pumpkin, then the two L's so that I would have them spaced out evenly. Then I placed the letter F onto the sign, followed by the letter L and the other letter L. You could use stencils for this or poster stickers if you don't have a vinyl machine. I did not glue the pumpkin down just yet, and I will attach that closer to the end. Once I had the letters in place, I flipped the sign over to the black side and laid out the word hey and the letter B and then the two ghosts facing in opposite directions so that I would know exactly where to place them. Next, I placed the word hey in the upper left corner of the sign. I do wish now that I had made the word a little bit bigger, and I will more than likely go back and remove this hey and put a bigger one in its place. With the word hey in place, I put the letter B on the sign. This side is going to say hey boo, with the ghost acting as the O's. Again, I did not attach the ghost to this side yet. I will attach them when I attach the pumpkin. To hold the sign in place and allow me to flip the sign around for Halloween, I used 4 of these little picture frame backing clips that I took off of a picture frame that I was no longer using. You can also find these on Amazon if you don't have a frame laying around. I used a small Phillips head screwdriver and a little bit of pressure to screw the backing clip onto the frame. I tightened it up just enough so that it was snug, but not so tight that I could not move the clip. I placed one of these backing clips on top, bottom, and both sides of the back of the frame. Next, I used a combination of wood glue and hot glue wood glue to attach the pumpkin to the fall side of the sign between the letters F and L. I made a small shoestring bow using 3 thick pieces of raffia and hot glued it with the wood glue to the top of the pumpkin to cover up the holes. Once I was happy with the size and shape of the bow, I cut off the excess raffia but left enough for the tails. Then, to finish off this project, I flipped the sign back over to the Halloween side and, using the same combination of wood glues, attached the ghost to the sign under the letter B, facing in opposite directions. I love how this porch sign turned out. This one made it very difficult to pick a favorite from this video. I can't wait to decorate my porch this fall and Halloween with this sign front and center. Here is one final look at all of today's fall and Halloween reversible DIYs. I am absolutely thrilled with how these turned out, and I can't wait to decorate with them. If y'all are as ready for fall as I am and need more fall decor inspiration, be sure to check back on the 5th when I'll be sharing 5 new fall DIYs all under $5. Y'all don't want to miss it, so be sure you're subscribed and click the notification bell so you'll be notified when it goes live. Which one of these projects is your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. Mine has to be the rustic pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns, followed closely by the porch sign. I want to thank each and every one of you for stopping by today, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really does help me out here on YouTube. And if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, what are you waiting for? Click that button and stick around for a little while. I have tons of fun projects on the way. Please don't forget to go check out the host of the Flipping for Fall Challenge. Their channels are linked in the description box below. Also, don't forget to check out the playlist for even more reversible fall decor inspiration. I'll see y'all next time.